morning and good afternoon. It's our honor and joy to be here with us for the open house. My name is Elizabeth Papadopoulos. I'm the director of the Institute of Holistic Nutrition and the Institute of Holistic Nutrition Online. It is my honor and joy to introduce to you Jacqueline Steinert. Jacqueline is a certified nutritional practitioner. She is a graduate of the Institute of Holistic Nutrition with first-class honors. And prior to her nutritional studies, she graduated with honors from Harvard University, majoring in economics with a citation in French, where she privately tutored in economics and mentored youth in an outdoor wilderness program. She also has earned her basic diploma from Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, a catalyst for her love of food. Jacqueline runs a thriving private practice. She does telemedicine as well, right, Jacqueline?
Yeah.
And her practice is called JS Holistic Nutrition. She works with families and specialties ranging from childhood development, family meal preparation, hormonal health, inflammation, immunity, allergies, sensitivities, and more. And Jacqueline teaches advanced nutrition research, comparative diets, nutritional pathology, nutrition through the lifespan at our campuses. And today, she will be doing an excerpt from Comparative Diets. Let's welcome Jacqueline Steinert.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that introduction. And like Elizabeth said, I attended IHN, the North York campus, where I had such a life-changing experience. So, today I'm beyond excited to love not only teaching, but also every day meeting absolutely incredible, inspirational, aspiring nutritionists like yourselves. So thank you for that introduction. And without further ado, I would like to talk to you about the keto diet. The keto diet has tremendous therapeutic benefits, which I would love to share with you. At the same time, I want to give you a well-rounded perspective. So I will also highlight the risks and limitations. And when embarking on any live it, which is like what I like to refer to instead of diet, it is important to consider your bio-individuality as well as check your blood levels before making a decision. Every protocol depends on your genetics, your family history, your lifestyle, and priorities. So today I'm very excited to talk to you about ketosis, ketoacidosis. We will talk about the history and origins of ketosis and the distinction between these two very different concepts. I will also mention the therapeutic benefits of ketosis, which include weight loss, epilepsy, neurodegenerative disorders, cardiovascular health, and athletic performance, as well as variations on ketosis that include how to keto, who keto is best and worst for, as well as keto cycling and intermittent fasting. And I will leave the end for questions and answers. The keto diet. What does that mean? Ketosis is a switch in your body's fuel source from glucose to ketone bodies. In other words, ketosis is the physiological state that is achieved when your body breaks down ketones for energy as opposed to glucose from carbs. And this increase in ketones helps to lower your blood sugar as well as balance your fat burning hormones, which enables your body to burn fat for fuel every day. Now that we know briefly what it is, let's first talk about how it got started. Ketosis began in 1924 by Dr. Russell Wilder at the Mayo Clinic when he was trying to treat epilepsy, and he had very successful results. These paved the way for the diet to be used as an epilepsy treatment until post-World War II, when they developed anti-seizure medications, which replaced the protocol. At the same time, a German biochemist and Nobel laureate named Otto Warburg published a study that showed that cancer cells use glucose for energy, which suggested that low-carb, low-glucose, in other words, keto diets, could remedy certain cancers. In 1994, a young boy named Charlie Abrahams suffered from pediatric epilepsy, which was difficult to control. So his parents took him to the Johns Hopkins Hospital, where they put him on a keto diet. And there his seizures stopped within days, and he remained on it for 5 years. And today, he is seizure-free. If you're interested in the implications of keto diet on epilepsy, you can follow this in a movie called First Do No Harm, starring Meryl Streep, that chronicles the success of the keto diet on another epileptic boy. So what is ketosis? The objective of the ketone diet is you're switching your metabolism from glucose to ketones. Normally, our body cells utilize blood sugar from carbs as fuel. By restricting our carbs, we thereby deplete our body of sugar reserves. So there's no longer blood sugar circulating in our body. Our liver will break down our stored fat into molecules and release ketone bodies into our bloodstream. And this process and the resulting metabolic state is known as ketosis. Now, when your body has used all of that sugar that's stored as glycogen in our muscles and our liver, the only fuel left to burn is the fat that is stored primarily in your adipose tissue and around vital organs, and protein found primarily in muscle tissue. So your body will enlist your liver to convert the stored fat into ketones, extracting those fatty acids from the fat cells. This is ketosis. It is our brain's form of crisis management, an emergency measure that preserves our muscle tissue and vital organs from losing excessive protein. Now, the excess protein that we metabolize will result in a glut of ammonia. And this is why your breath might have an unpleasant chemical smell. It is often described as fruity or scented like nail polish remover. Now, ammonia is highly toxic. So our brains, our wonderful brains, develop a damage control mechanism to protect themselves. Our brain will detox these ammonia molecules by converting them to glutamine, which is then shuttled to our kidneys, where it is broken down to glutamate and ammonia, which we will come back to in 1 second. This ammonia is converted into urea, which is a major component of our urine. Now, we are making ketone bodies. That is the objective, and we are switching what we're metabolizing from glucose to these ketone bodies. They are produced mostly in our mitochondria. These are our energy powerhouses in our liver cells during fasting. From a biochemical point of view, acetyl-acetyl-CoA condenses with acetyl-CoA and water and forms something called a 6-carbon intermediate, which cleaves to acetyl-CoA and acetoacetic acid, which is one of those ketones we refer to. And this can be metabolized either to beta-hydroxybutyric acid, which is another ketone, or to acetone, which is our third ketone. So we have 3 forms of ketones: acetone, which you see in your breath, beta-hydroxybutyrate, which you can test in blood tests, and acetoacetate, which will show up in urine. So during ketosis, when that ketosis begins, your body will burn through the glycogen, last molecules of sugar stored in your liver and muscles. And everybody has glycogen stored in their liver and muscles, on average, roughly 300 grams in our liver and 1,500 grams in our muscles. This process is called gluconeogenesis. Now, with every gram of glycogen that your body burns through, you also burn through 3 grams of water. This is important to know because for every gram of weight lost in a high protein, low carb diet, do know that there will at first be a rapid weight loss in the form of water and glycogen, not just fat. And the body, as a consequence, is going to be dehydrated as well as lose electrolytes with this immediate weight loss. We also talked about the ammonia, which comes out in urea. So I wanted to show you how your body is so wonderful and learns to detox. So we said that ammonia is one of those ketone byproducts that are produced when you enter ketosis. This is converted into glutamine, which is then shuttled to the kidneys and converted to glutamate. And then it is eliminated from your body as urea, a major component of urine. Now we keep talking about all this water loss. With each gram of glycogen, we're losing 3 grams of water. So a very important consequence you must know for keto is that you will be dehydrated and lose electrolytes. So something very important when you're first starting out is you must replenish those electrolytes. You can replenish your magnesium through your dark leafy greens and nuts, your calcium through your seeds and your broccoli, your sodium through your high quality sea salt and your nutrient rich sea vegetables, and your potassium through avocado and Swiss chard. Or you can do this more easily. You can sip on a coconut water throughout the day or take a high quality electrolyte supplement. So we've gone to the nuts and bolts. What really is the keto diet and what does it take to follow this diet? So first off, I just want to explain to you that traditionally, people in the past did not like fat. They thought that fat made you fat. But if you look at trends, as consumption of fat has gone down over the years, quite ironically, the rate of obesity has gone up. So my takeaway here is that fat does not make you fat. And this is important to know because the keto diet is focused on macronutrients, more specifically fat. So what macronutrients do we follow on the keto diet? You predominantly want to eat 70 to 75% of healthy fats, and we will go through what these mean. 20 to 25% protein, and at a maximum 5% carbs. When I say carbs, I'm referring to net carbs, and that means we exclude fiber because our body does not digest fiber, and that is not converted into glucose. So that 5% carbs is actually a little bit more lenient than it sounds like. It might sound daunting to you when I say 70 to 75% fats, but I do want you to remember that this is quite feasible because we're talking about calories, not volume. And remember that carbohydrates and protein provide 4 calories per gram, whereas fat provides 9 calories per gram. And so 70% of your total calories coming from healthy fats means incorporating salmon, avocado, olives, eggs, and nuts. So you can see that that is quite feasible. When we look at macronutrients, protein and fats are essential, whereas carbs are not so essential. And when you look at your typical diet, for example, let's look at the standard American diet, which is what SAD stands for. And that acronym is quite fitting because it's quite sad. The standard American diet includes 60% carbs, 15% protein, and 25% fat. And in contrast, on keto, you are eating 70 to 80% healthy fats, 20 to 25% healthy proteins, and at a max 5 to 10% carbs. So how do we achieve ketosis? You need to track these macros. You could either manually do this in a diary or you could use an app. There are some great ones out there such as Chronometer or Carb Manager. You need to restrict your carb intake, no more than 40 grams of net carbs. And that net is very important because that means you can eat things like dark leafy greens because you're subtracting the fiber. You want to increase your MCT intake. That stands for mid-chain triglycerides. It is found in coconut oil or palm kernel oil, and they're very easily, rapidly digested and absorbed, and so they're easily converted into fuel for your body. You can combine this with intermittent fasting, which we will talk about towards the end of this, and it will boost the effects of ketosis. And you don't want to be sedentary. You don't want to necessarily go out and run a marathon, but you do want to take, your daily walks outside and so forth. You want to moderate your protein intake, and you can test your ketones using blood ketone levels or a urine test or breath strips. Now, one more process I do want to talk about is called gluconeogenesis, and this is a survival mechanism, and it is important in the context of keto because your body traditionally does glycolysis, which is in your citric acid cycle, where your body uses glucose to converge into pyruvate to create energy, ATP. Now, when you're restricting your glucose, a survival mechanism kicks in and the reverse of glycolysis can occur. This is called gluconeogenesis, where your body will create glucose from non-glucose protein or fats in your liver. And this might occur if you have insufficient glucose in your diet and excess proteins to convert. So you want to eat the minimum amount of protein to preserve your lean body mass and not overtax your kidneys. Gluconeogenesis is simply a conservation mechanism of your body whose objective is to balance blood sugar and prevent fatal hypoglycemia. Gluconeogenesis can step in when that glucose is not available to cells. So in the instance of type 1 diabetes that is uncontrolled, long-term fasting, or the keto diet, it is simply your body's way of maintaining homeostasis, equilibrium. And the glucose from this process will be prioritized to your brain, red blood cells, and kidneys. So excess protein can cause these excess amino acids, and that can convert to glucose in gluconeogenesis. So always maintain a healthy balance of protein. In a low carb, high fat diet such as keto, when glucose is unavailable to the cells, the fatty acids will be transformed into ketones for energy. So your body should get all the energy that it needs from your ketones, those fatty acids, from your mitochondria cells of your liver. So when you first start embarking on your keto diet, a couple of trademark symptoms will manifest. So you might have increased urination, and this is when your body is passing those ketones. Remember, we talked about dehydration. So your mouth might feel dry. And we talked about you exhaling that ammonia, which would result in an odd odor of your breath, as well as increased energy, which is that improved, sustained, consistent energy that ketones provide. Now, some people talk about entering ketosis, undergoing something called keto flu. And this occurs the first few days when your body shifts towards a fat-based metabolism. These symptoms might include headache, constipation, cramps, diarrhea, weakness, fatigue, irritability, and brain fog. And the reason for this is that lack of electrolytes, the carb withdrawal, the dehydration, and your body transitioning from glucose to ketones to your brain. So to mitigate these symptoms, you want to remedy this by replenishing your electrolytes, hydrating, having MCT oil, eating those non-starchy veggies for your gut, and carb cycling, which we will talk about if desired. Lastly, give it time. Your body will adjust. So I did mention something called ketoacidosis, and a lot of critics bring this up in the context of ketosis, but it is very different. So ketosis we talked about is when you're switching your fuel source from glucose to ketone bodies. Ketoacidosis is a pathological metabolic state marked by extreme uncontrolled ketosis. In ketoacidosis, your body is failing to adequately regulate ketone production, causes a severe accumulation of keto acids, and the pH of your blood substantially plummets. In extreme cases, this can be fatal. It is marked by symptoms that include frequent urination, extreme thirst, high blood sugar levels, high levels of ketones in the urine, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, confusion, a fruity smelling breath, a flushed face, fatigue, rapid breathing, and dry mouth and skin. It can occur quickly with an onset less than 24 hours. And for it to happen, a culmination of several vulnerable demographics have to occur, such as illness, such as infection, improper diet, severe stress, not taking the adequate dose of insulin. And this can occur in individuals with type 2 diabetes as well, who are not being monitored and who have little or no insulin production. So ketoacidosis is very different from ketosis. Now, the byproducts of ketosis can be acidifying, and the long-term ketosis, where the insulin compromised, can lead to that accumulation of the acidifying ketone bodies. So ketoacidosis can be fatal in the scenario that insulin production is compromised, such as for type 1 diabetics or alcoholics. But it is important to know that for a healthy individual where type 1 diabetes is absent, ketones are used as an alternative energy source, and they rarely poison or acidify. So a quick snapshot of the pros of the keto diet. It causes weight loss as you're mobilizing your adipose fat tissue to burn for fuel. You're less hungry as you're eating healthy fats and protein, which stimulates the CCK and the feelings of satisfaction. You have increased long-term energy, balanced blood sugar, improved anxiety as your blood sugar is managed, improved athletic endurance, performance, stamina. The ketones will help you feel sharper, smarter, more focused. It works well when you combine it with intermittent fasting. It reduces things like hypercholesterolemia, hypertension, insulin levels, cancer, candida, epilepsy, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. And we'll get into that shortly. Some of the cons of the keto diet: if you are not focusing on those dark leafy greens for your net carbs, you will have a low fiber intake, which could cause constipation. And the lack of fiber could challenge your microbiome. So you want to make sure to focus on those dark leafy greens. You could have dehydration and loss of electrolytes. That bad breath we spoke about, it can be acidifying. And if you're doing dirty keto, which we will talk about, you aren't focusing on the quality of your fats. You might be eating conventionally farmed meats that are high in fat-soluble toxins. It could leave your body in a demineralized state. It could cause that ketoacidosis, which we just talked about. And for some demographics, they are more vulnerable, and you wouldn't ask them to follow the keto diet, such as someone who is trying to become pregnant, a child who is in need of development. And lastly, with any restrictive diet or live it can be difficult to maintain. So let's check those therapeutic benefits that keto is so well known for. Right off the bat, the keto diet causes weight loss. You are limiting your carbs, and that is causing a rapid water and glycogen loss. And then later on, you're suppressing your appetite with those healthy fats and proteins, and your fat stores are being burned for fuel. The keto diet is also very successful for epilepsy. Even studies look at the impact of keto on epileptic infants that are less than a year old. Now, the way that ketosis improves epilepsy is it reduces the amount of glutamate in the brain, which enhances the synthesis of GABA, which is a naturally occurring amino acid working as a neurotransmitter in your brain. Ketosis alters the genes that are involved in energy metabolism in your brain and stabilizes the function of neurons that are exposed to the challenges of epileptic seizures. Ketone bodies can cross our blood-brain barrier, unlike glucose, which does not reach our brain in sufficient levels. So these ketones can be used as fuel and even as an anticonvulsant. Another way that ketosis improves epilepsy is that ketosis byproduct beta-hydroxybutyrate, which has anti-seizure and neuroprotective properties. The majority of children who have been put on the keto diet have been able to either stop their meds or significantly reduce them. And the diet has been in use since the 1920s at the Johns Hopkins Epilepsy Center. In a recent study that was published in the Lancet Journal of Neurology, 73 children were assigned to the keto diet, while the control group of 72 on a regular diet. And after only 3 months, those on the keto diet had fewer seizures, and some were even seizure-free. Many papers and scientific research also laud the benefits of the keto diet on delaying neurodegenerative disease progression and simply improving cognitive function. The presence of ketone bodies has a neuroprotective impact on our aging brain cells, and the production of these bodies enhances our mitochondrial function and reduces our inflammation. Remember, we spoke about beta-hydroxybutyrate, that major ketone produced. This has neuroprotective effects, and it provides more energy per unit oxygen used than glucose, thereby benefiting our brain. Damaged neurons or brain cells that cannot communicate cause impaired cognition, and a systemic review in 2020 revealed a correlation between the increase in blood ketone concentrations and our neurocognitive battery. So definitely a great impact on neurodegenerative diseases. We also talked about its benefit on heart health. When you have a diet that emphasizes healthy fats, such as the keto diet, you lower your weight, you lower your LDL cholesterol, you're increasing your protective HDL cholesterol, and you're lowering your blood sugar. These are all markers of heart disease. You also are helping with inflammation. Now, inflammation is what injures our arteries and damages our heart health. So elevated blood sugar and poor insulin function are what contribute to that inflammation. And if you're following a healthy keto diet where you're eating nuts, seeds, avocados, then you're lowering your blood sugar and you're improving your insulin function, thus lowering your risk for cardiovascular disease. We also talked about cancer, where keto can selectively induce metabolic oxidative stress in cancer cells. This renders the cells more sensitive to effective treatments like chemo and radiation. And additionally, cancer feeds on sugar. And if you think about it, keto is a high-fat diet void of sugars. So you are therefore starving those tumors. Keto is also helpful for type 2 diabetes. Remember that we're decreasing our blood glucose levels and we're managing our carb intake. So our body is converting fats instead of sugar into energy. If you look at carbs, those are what are dangerous because they turn to sugar and they cause those spikes in our blood sugar, and that is what is dangerous for diabetics. One note of caution, however, diabetics must test their blood sugar levels to ensure that they're within target range, as a low carb diet can increase the risk of that ketoacidosis we talked about. But they can do this easily. They can test for ketones with at-home urine strips or the breath monitor when the blood glucose is too high. And they will also manifest in symptoms such as the dry mouth, frequent urination, nausea, fruity breath, and breathing difficulties. And lastly, athletes. The keto diet allows athletes to rely on fat for fuel during lower to moderate intensity efforts. And keto is best for endurance sports where our bodies burn fat for fuel, right? We wouldn't necessarily follow keto if we're sprint training, as high intensity, short duration might actually see drops in performance because you have an increase in fat oxidation, which can lower your body's ability to efficiently utilize energy in a speed-sensitive manner. Studies have shown, though, that the keto diet improves energy for training and competition, and that athletes on the keto diet burn roughly double the fat than those on a high carb diet, which enables them to have more energy to sustain a workout over time. Ketosis improves our mitochondrial biogenesis, where we make new, bigger, higher energy producing mitochondria, so athletes will have stronger cells and greater stamina. This is ideal for those endurance athletes whose performance improves in ketosis compared to sugar burning when they have more fat than carb reserves. So far we've talked about ketosis and ketoacidosis, as well as those therapeutic benefits of ketosis. I now want to talk about the variations of ketosis, how to keto, who it's best and worst for, cycling, and intermittent fasting. You might have heard something called clean versus dirty keto. What is the difference? So my two images are both keto. But if you look at the left, that is refined processed inflammatory. We have high omega-6s, we're slathered in saturated fats, and we have nitrates and preservatives. Whereas on the right, that is what we call clean keto. Clean keto means you're incorporating top keto foods such as avocados, eggs, olives, olive oil, fatty fish, coconut oils high in your MCTs, grass-fed butter, nuts, nut butters, seeds, pumpkin, chia, flax, hemp, dark leafy greens, nutrient-rich sea vegetables, grass-fed meat, liver, and bone broth. In other words, clean sources of fat and protein. And we are avoiding most fruits, such as bananas, papaya, pineapple, and apple, sugar of any kind, as well as their replacements, whole grains, refined grains, starchy vegetables, and sweetened beverages such as juice, pop, and alcohol. But don't worry, we're going to talk about alcohol. So in short, you also want to avoid those poor quality proteins such as nitrate-rich bacon and deli meats, which are technically keto approved, but also referred to as dirty keto. Now, I said we'd mention alcohol. If you are someone who likes to drink alcohol, fear not, you still can, as there are pure alcohols that contain zero carbs, such as rum, vodka, gin, tequila, and whiskey. And then if you're cycling, which we'll talk about in a minute, There's low alcohol options such as lighthearted wines and partake beer. But I do want you to know that your body treats ethanol as a toxin and it will work to detox it, meaning that your liver is going to prioritize processing that alcohol for any other nutrients, including your fats, which can slow down your process of converting those fatty acids to ketones, and it will impact your ketosis. Also, if you have zero carbs and no stored glycogen, your alcohol tolerance is much lower, so be prepared for a hangover. So what does a keto plate look like? We did mention clean sources of fat and protein, and you might ask, what are those proteins? So under the keto diet, protein's moderate, and it depends on your energy level. You want to eat the minimum amount to preserve your lean body mass and not overtax your kidneys, but avoid excess protein, which can convert into glucose. That's that gluconeogenesis we spoke about. So you want to opt for wild-caught fish, grass-fed finished beef, wild meats, pasture-raised poultry, nuts, seeds, right? So just a reminder, that's dirty keto when you're focusing on refined, processed, inflammatory foods. And then there's clean keto, where you're focusing on those healthy, clean sources of fat and protein combined with dark leafy greens. So how do we safely utilize these benefits? Prioritize quality foods over macronutrients, right? Go for whole foods as opposed to refined, even keto approved foods, and read your labels. You want to limit your dairy as that's inflammatory. The A1 casein can trigger indigestion and inflammation. So replace this with delicious nut milks and grass-fed ghee. And you don't want to forget your vegetables. These have phytonutrients, antioxidants, enzymes, fiber, resistant starches, and those electrolytes that you need to replenish. Go for those low-carb veggies such as avocado or dark leafy greens. And lastly, your meats. Don't go for the processed, grain-fed meats. You want to look for grass-finished, organic cuts, as well as wild-caught fish. So to sum up, who can benefit from keto? We talked about high-risk cardiovascular, or as well as type 2 diabetics who must be monitored, and neurological disorders. These are all helped by the keto diet. Autistics, cancer patients, those with anxiety disorders, and obese individuals. Who should avoid keto? Are type 1 diabetics. Those with hypoglycemia should start slowly. And then the vulnerable demographics, such as pregnant or breastfeeding women, children who are developing, or somebody with a kidney, pancreas, gallbladder, or liver condition. So just a quick snapshot. The pros: you're helping your blood sugar, nervous system conditions, carb intolerance, candida, cancer. It is ideal for fast oxidizers in blood type O and B, and it's easily applied. It can be flexible depending on your budget. Some disadvantages are that it includes toxic artificial sweeteners, nitrates, preservatives, which are all carcinogenic. So make sure you're doing it cleanly. And you want to remember to hydrate and include that fiber. Additional considerations: sip on that coconut water to replenish the electrolytes, take your mineral supplements, track your macros carefully using either Carb Manager or Chronometer or in your food diary. Add in those probiotics, whether from whole foods such as kefir and sauerkraut, to maintain your microbiome. Use those MCT oils, as well as you can add intermittent fasting, which we will lastly talk about, increase your exercise, and moderate your protein. Can you do keto long-term? I always say everybody's unique. If you do it in a sustainable manner, meaning eating healthy, clean foods, you're supplementing with probiotics, fiber, and minerals as needed, you're focusing on nuts, seeds, wild fatty fish, avocados, and dark leafy greens, then absolutely. Any restricted diet can be challenging, and that is why I'm about to introduce to you an alternative called Keto Cycling. And remember that you always want to do this under the watchful eyes of a collaborative expert and monitor your markers such as your glucose, your inflammation, and your electrolytes. So I've mentioned keto cycling. I just wanted to quickly tell you what that means. This is defined as following the keto diet for 5 or 6 days, and then following a higher carb menu for a day or two. You would attempt this after you've already followed the keto diet for 30 to 60 days so that your body has fully adjusted to ketosis. But the benefits are that it's less restrictive and extreme, and therefore more sustainable. You can use this to still promote weight loss, boost athletic performance, and optimize your muscle growth. So those days that you're following a higher carb menu, you can increase your carbs by about 30 grams a day when you break keto, but I want you to focus on higher quality carbs. You're not going for cookies and cake here. We're more opting for sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, and berries. And my last variation I wanted to share with you is intermittent fasting. This is also known as intermittent energy restriction, where you fast for a minimum of 16 hours per day. So for example, you start eating at 10 a.m., you end eating at 6 p.m. So this voluntary fasting can help you to reach ketosis quickly, as well as autophagy, which means you're eliminating waste and you're having cell turnover more efficiently. Intermittent fasting lowers your insulin levels. It can reverse insulin resistance, promotes growth hormone or anti-aging hormone, and it's known to reduce inflammation, improve brain function, and control your blood sugar. But again, you would not suggest this for a pregnant or breastfeeding woman or somebody with a history of an eating disorder. So to recap, we spoke about ketosis and we distinguished it from ketoacidosis. We also talked about the therapeutic benefits of ketosis, as well as variations on how to keto, who it's best and worst for, what it means to keto cycle, and intermittent fasting. I now want to open this for questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Okay. That was an exceptional presentation on the keto diet. Love the plate samples and everything that you went to. It was so clear, and that was fantastic. So let's see if we have some questions. We have a question here. How long should the keto diet be used for autism?
Okay, perfect. So when you are, using the keto diet for things like autism, epilepsy, neurodegenerative disorders, you would want to use it for a good solid amount of time so you can start to see those effects. As I said, it takes your body roughly 30 to 60 days to really transition fully into keto, and it definitely depends for different people. So that's why you would want to monitor it, whether you're using the breath strips, the urine, and the blood. Measure when you are in ketosis and then see the benefits from there. So, a lot of studies do as short as 3 to 6 months. And then under the watchful eyes of, a collaborator support, you could do it, see if you have those benefits in a year or so, and then you can keep tweaking it from there.
Fantastic. Okay, next question we have here is keto recommended during menopause?
That's a great question. So I always say, and we talk about this in great depth in comparative diets, that the best diet for somebody is that diet for that person. So the keto diet can absolutely help with hormones. It can absolutely help with those symptoms of menopause. But for some people, right, if there's other things that need resolving, you want to fix the root issues, which, we talk about in SIMP. We talk about when you do a protocol, you want to make sure you are, in homeostasis, and then you can approach the keto diet, eating those clean sources that we talked about. If you're doing it in that clean, healthful, sustainable manner, then absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. And the question here is, I hear that a keto diet is not recommended for long-term when the main goal is weight loss. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. So I think the source of your question is what we talked about, how at the very beginning of ketosis, you are burning through that glycogen. And for each unit of glycogen, you are burning through those 3 units of water. So a lot of people say, I'm going to do keto, and they start losing a lot of weight quickly because they're losing the glycogen and those 3 units of water. Now, sometimes people don't stick with it. So as soon as they stop restricting those carbs, you're going to gain that water weight back immediately, right? If, however, you're doing keto, and this is why I always emphasize clean keto versus dirty keto. If you're doing clean keto, where we're eating, the nuts, the seeds, the avocado, the wild fatty fish, the healthy wild game, right? There's nothing extreme about that. What's extreme is the amount of sugar that our SAD diet is right now, right? So if you're doing the sustainable version of keto, absolutely you will keep that weight loss off. You will start burning through that adipose tissue. You're not just doing that extreme water loss at the very beginning. So it's important the type of keto you're doing. Absolutely.
Excellent. Next question we have is, do you know if, I think they're trying to say if your hormones will balance out or cause a hormonal imbalance while you're on keto?
Yeah. So when I'm always asked about what demographics are good for what, right? It's always individual. You want to customize the diet, but you don't want to go into the keto diet with completely, imbalanced hormones, right? If you are hypothyroid or, you have adrenal issues, the ideal thing is you want to resolve those issues first. And then you can follow the keto diet. It's a lot more sustainable if you have reached that equilibrium, that balance, right? So the keto diet wouldn't necessarily target those specific hormonal imbalances, but once they've been resolved, it is an excellent way to, manage your blood sugar and keep your hormones in that balance.
Yeah, fantastic. Keto is proven to be great for sport performance. What about recovery, where you usually need carbs?
Yeah, and so for athletes, I do often suggest that they consider the carb cycling, the keto cycling, because then you are upping your carbs slightly. Remember, we said you are only upping it with healthy carbs. I'm not telling you to go out and eat cake and cookies. So those added carbs do help with the recovery. But if you look at the keto diet, right, you're eating healthy fats and protein, and that helps with recovery, right? The anti-inflammatory fats, as well as the protein, which helps with your muscles and the tissues.
Okay, thank you. And usually we learn that meat is very bad for cancer and tumor cell growth, thus meat should be avoided completely. Now keto seems to be a game changer. How would you explain that?
Yeah. So do you guys remember me talking about clean keto versus dirty keto, right? Dirty keto, we are eating farm conventional animals. These are high in our omega-6s, which are inflammatory. They're grain-fed. You're consuming all the heavily sprayed crops. So yes, I understand the argument that sometimes meat can be bad, and the fat is where all those toxins are stored. Remember, though, we are emphasizing clean keto. So you are eating wild game, right? Which is high in your anti-inflammatory omega-3s. And again, it's 70% of your calories, not your volume. So we're not talking about a 20-ounce steak at dinner, right? It's very feasible if you're looking at it from a caloric perspective.
Perfect. And is keto okay for cancer survivors, or is intermittent fasting preferred?
So, it depends on the person, obviously. Keto is okay as long as you're doing it in that sustainable, clean way we're talking about, right? We're not talking about eating, abundant amounts of farm factory meat, right? We're talking about small amounts of your high quality proteins. So look at it from this perspective. Don't look at it as a high meat diet, right? High bacon, high eggs. No, we're saying you're eating abundant amounts of avocado, nuts, seeds, wild fatty fish. These are all healthy foods. So a lot of the questions often ask, keto so extreme, is that something we should follow? But what is extreme is actually today's conventional diets. Keto is actually a very clean, healthy way of eating. In response to your intermittent fasting, I would say that it definitely depends on the person. I've had some people who intermittent fasting does increase anxiety for them. Or, I did mention you wouldn't want to suggest intermittent fasting if you've had a history of eating disorders. That said, intermittent fasting does wonders for some people. If you're giving your body that break, imagine how much, of relaxation, all that autophagy can occur, and the lack of the insulin spikes for some people. So it really depends on the person, but intermittent fasting can do wonders for some people. For some people, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. They could do keto on its own. I did just throw it in there as something that can help boost the effects, but it's not necessary at all.
Yep. Okay, great. And eating high fats, what happens to heart health?
So we talked about cardiovascular health. It's actually, remember, you want high healthy fats, right? And it's by calories, not volume. I'm not telling you to go out there and eat, a ton of saturated fats. No, we are saying 70% of your calories. And remember, it is 9 versus 4 for fats versus proteins and carbs. So you are eating, a good amount, but these are healthy anti-inflammatory fats. Remember, fat does not make you fat. So eating these healthy, clean fats is sustainable. It is healthy for your body.
Okay, perfect. And in regards to vegetarian or vegans wanting to be on a keto, what would be the primary sources for protein there?
Yeah, absolutely. So for vegetarians, I would say it's absolutely feasible. You have all your wild fatty fish, you have your nuts, you have your seeds. And I said you want to limit your dairy, but you can still eat dairy, right? If you have your high quality organic dairy, then absolutely, right? If you don't have a problem with lactase. Now, if you're a vegan, you can still do keto. You have your nuts and seeds, you have your avocados, you can do keto with a lot of nut milks as well. So it's still feasible, but obviously when you have a bit more restrictions, it takes a little bit more preparation for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much today. That was a wonderful and thorough presentation on the keto diet. Definitely some food for thought to think about if that is a good option for, whatever the situation is for an individual. And thank you so much, Jacqueline. So to catch Jacqueline again, she teaches in our program in both the online and the in-class. She teaches comparative diets, lifespan, research, and pathology. And consistently gets rave reviews from all the students. So we would love to see you come to one of Jacqueline's classes. Okay, thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Bye, guys.
Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.